It is a law universally acknowledged that any halfway successful manga series will get adapted for television eventually, or at least struggle with OVAs and films before finally being given an anime. But when those series get even more successful, so a new law appears, that those films are very likely going to straight up suck. From the classic era of the many lone wolf and cub movies to today's nearly endless output from Netflix, adaptations of manga have been going strong for a long time. And while the quality has fluctuated over the years, it seems like many of the crappiest have come out in the last decade or so. Judge for yourself, and let me know if there are any older ones I've missed in the comments. But for now, here are 5 I've picked as some of the worst you can have the misfortune to watch. Stay away and stick to the originals. I discovered The Disastrous Life of Saiki K the best way to discover anything, by accident. I've not been a huge fan of gag series in the past, but this seemed like the sort of ridiculous nonsense I was in the mood for, and it was a great call. Full of silliness, meta jokes, and a bright art style that betrayed its overall goofiness. The titular Saiki K, as his name suggests, is a powerful psychic, but also a huge introvert who is trying to keep his abilities hidden from everyone around him. Reasonable, I'd say. If I had that power, I'd be hiding in the mountains. Saiki's OP abilities have left him a bit of a social outcast, though he has the habit of attracting the attention of the school's most deranged students. There's Nendo, who is so stupid even Saiki can't read his mind, Kaido, who believes the manga he's reading is real, and the stunning Teruhashi, so beautiful is she that she literally radiates an aura, who finds Saiki immensely attractive as he is the only person in the school not to fawn over her. It's a silly, wacky, and naturally very cartoony show, so what could possibly go wrong turning this much cartoonishness into a live-action film? Saiki K is a film so limited by what its actors can do, as well as by the general structure of a live-action film. Gag series tend to operate on a jokes-per-minute basis, often eschewing story in favour of a good punchline, which they deliver rapidly and without mercy. As such, Saiki K the show tends to tell short, episodic stories no more than 10 minutes apiece. Saiki K the movie has the unforgivably hard job of making a 90-minute, 3-act narrative out of it. The movie jumps around from plot A to plot B so much that it never has time to actually finish the joke it's telling, resulting in a film that's telling a knock-knock joke in the middle of asking why the chicken crossed the road. The characters, being played by real-life flesh and blood actors, don't get to be as over the top, and in the end, much of their actions end up looking kind of embarrassing. The Disastrous Life of Saiki K is exactly that, one big disaster and an exercise in trying not to cringe at talented actors doing their best to pull off gag manga reactions and extremely close-up gurns. For many years, Attack on Titan was the most popular show in all of anime. This post-apocalyptic horror action series saw a world besieged by giant naked humanoids who mindlessly ate everything in their path. Eren Yeager is a young boy living in a village on the outskirts of what could very well be the last civilized country in the world. During an increasingly common Titan attack, his mother is killed and he vows to kill every last one of them. Along with his friends Armin and Mikasa, he joins the Survey Corps, a military unit with skills and equipment designed for killing Titans. As the series progresses, a complex web of conspiracies and ancient history reveals itself to Eren, as does the truth about the Titans. The show is known for its gorgeous action, character drama, and most of all its central mystery. What exactly were the Titans? Where did they come from? Where are their genitals? All this rich storytelling potential, coupled with the show's enormous global appeal, meant that, of course, a movie adaptation was in the works. In fact, so sure were they of the film's success, they made 2 films at the same time in order to fully cover the entire Attack on Titan story. The only problem, the manga wasn't even close to finishing. The film stuck true to the story, more or less, in the first half, but to maximise on its popularity, the film was rushed, looked terrible, and was almost entirely incoherent to anyone who hadn't seen or read the original. However, it's in the second part that things get really weird. With no published explanation for most of the series' questions, the filmmakers had to go full Game of Thrones and just make up their own thing. And while in theory that's a good idea, in practice it resulted in a messy story about a Japanese military program gone wrong. This does explain why everyone is inexplicably Japanese in this version, but raises so many more questions, none of which are answered satisfactorily. For die-hard fans who needed answers immediately, maybe it scratched an itch, but for everyone else it was very much worth waiting the how many years? For an actual satisfying answer. Equivalent exchange is a concept thrown around a lot in the world of Full Metal Alchemist. The idea is that the manga's titular alchemists take the energy or matter from one state into another, more or less following the laws of conservation of mass. Full Metal Alchemist the movie is a baffling corruption of these laws, fully insulting both the audience and Sir Isaac Newton by taking what was gold and turning it into shit. FMA was the brainchild of Hiromu Arakawa and followed 2 brothers, Eric and Alphonse, who break one of alchemy's biggest taboos, the transposition of a human soul. The attempt goes horribly wrong, and Alphonse is left as a soul without a body, now inhabiting a suit of armor. The boys travel the land, encountering dozens of memorable characters, getting into exciting fights, uncovering a massive conspiracy, and also this. In short, Fullmetal Alchemist is absolutely loaded with story arcs, characters, and complex world building. And Fullmetal Alchemist, the movie, looks like a high-budget YouTube parody with decent cosplayers. In many ways, it's Attack on Titan's opposite. The film itself looked pretty good, and you'll never mistake it for anything else. And while AOT had to improvise an ending, Alchemist had everything it needed, yet still managed to botch it. Which is funny, because a Fullmetal Alchemist adaptation did have the same issues as Attack on Titan, and was way better. The first animated adaptation made a whole bunch of nonsense up to end its story, but had time to tell that story, resulting in something that's a bit weird, and not remotely canon, but worth watching. Meanwhile, the movie has so much story to play with, from vengeful soldier Scar, the many homunculi running around, the mystery of Father, the villainous Kimberly, and chose, for whatever reason, to do all of them at once. The result is a film that's so messy and spends so little time dedicated to any of its storylines that you're left with your head spinning and wondering how we all suddenly got into the mountains. Telling an epic story with many moving parts in a trilogy can be difficult but isn't impossible, just ask Peter Jackson. But for some reason, the Fullmetal Alchemist films manage to focus on the least important part of any particular arc and moves on before it has time to develop anything. It barely even tries to adapt, it just picks some random scenes, shot them in front of the shoddiest green screen work I've seen in years, and barely bothered to edit any of it. If the doors of truth are opened, then I'd rather stay in ignorance. Speaking of a rushed story, Assassination Classroom! Anime adaptations often struggle with the fact that the series they have to adapt just have so much going on, and it's impossible to put all of the necessary setup, drama, and payoff into one 2-hour film. As a result, even the best adaptations end up looking a little worse for wear, ramming, as they must, so many episodes of a TV series into one experience. And nowhere does it feel quite as rushed as Assassination Classroom. There's a lot going on here, so long story short. A class of delinquents has been tasked with becoming great assassins in order to kill their teacher, a weird alien octopus monster known only as Koro-sensei. Koro-sensei threatens to destroy the Earth if these kids aren't up for the challenge, and having previously destroyed the Moon, everyone knows this isn't an empty threat. So begins a quirky, funny, and sometimes touching story of a teacher bonding with his kids, and the inevitability of having to say goodbye. Assassination Classroom might be the least of the offenders on this list, but like many of the other entries, it commits the terrible sin of just trying to get through too much in too little time. Like many classroom-based shows, AC has 24 odd characters to keep track of, including their classmates, some of whom are clearly more important than others, Koro-sensei himself, the rest of the school staff, and the many assassins who come and kill Koro-sensei on the regular. I probably couldn't tell you much about most of the characters in the class, sure, but from the show I could probably say something about some of them. In the film, outside of local psychopath Karma, I don't know anything about any of them. Even Nagisa, ostensibly the main character of the entire thing, is extremely bland, showing only hints of its true nature throughout. And while Psyche K and the others on this list put a lot of effort into making their characters look right, if not act it, Assassination can't be bothered with any of it, giving Karma the subtlest of dye jobs, and doing nothing to make Nagisa or any of the others even remotely visually interesting. Only Koro-sensei is recognizable, and honestly, if they managed to mess that up, I might have rated the film higher. I have friends who like Uzumaki, and there'll be people in the comments who like Uzumaki, and they'll have no doubt a lot of things to say about it. They might be right, who knows. Uzumaki is arguably the most famous work of iconic horror mangaka Junji Ito. He's an artist known for his highly complex and detailed artworks that showcase the depths of insanity his characters tend to face, and each immaculately drawn panel must take an absolute eternity to complete, whereas anime, on the other hand, is known for simplistic drawings and minimal movement. Hardly a good match. Thankfully, we're not talking about that Uzumaki, perhaps another time, but instead the 2000 released not-quite horror film directed by Higuchinsky. The manga and the film both tell of a Japanese town that is slowly descending into madness, into an Innsmouth-style horror show where everyone is obsessed with, and possessed by, spirals. It follows Kyrie on break from college as she and her boyfriend discover and try to escape this town, slowly succumbing to the curse of spirals. The film, fully realized in a blindingly ugly Matrix-era green tint, retells a lot of the manga's original story, but does so in the least frightening way possible. There's no sense of madness, no endless spiral into ruin, no feeling that this is just one instance in a possible never-ending curse. It's just a few very daft looking events and a lot of getting the idea of zaniness confused with insanity. Uzumaki, despite a lot of visual similarities, feels absolutely nothing like Uzumaki should. It's too grainy, too low res to really make its audience see and feel what they really need to. As such, this makes it the oddest entry on this list. It's bad for an entirely different reason. Other entries on this list have been able to get the general feel of their properties, at the very least keeping intact the tone of what's going on. Uzumaki just doesn't feel right. It feels weird, but it doesn't feel crazy. And considering its main ideas, never actually spirals out of control. And that's the list. If you can think of any worse live-action adaptations, or if you want to tell me how good Uzumaki actually is, let me know in the comments below. Please hit the subscribe button for more, and thanks for watching.